The internet is filled with information about lymphatic drainage, but no one's talking about the things that actually helped me. I struggled with swollen lymph nodes for decades. The swelling itself was painful and it was causing all sorts of problems in seemingly all of my body systems. Finally, I began working with my neuroperformance trainer and began to see major lymphatic health and overall health improvement. My community asked me to share a real-time video of me doing my lymphatic routine so that people could follow along. So, ta-da! No 2 days are exactly alike. Sometimes I spend more time on these exercises, sometimes less. Sometimes I focus more or less on a certain body part with certain techniques not shown here. But what I share here are the pillars of my routine, and I do something very similar to this on most days. The first major thing that's made a tremendous difference has been adding in mobility drills. I now do mobility drills for all of my joints, but the ones that have had the most obvious impact on my lymphatic health have been shoulder, pelvic, and neck mobility drills. I have shared before and will share more videos demonstrating and explaining these and the other mobility drills that have been such a game changer for me. I often do these mobility drills both before I begin and while I'm doing the lymphatic drainage massage techniques, which is what comes next. To begin, I gently stroke the lymphatic nodes just above my collarbone and press my fingertips down into the hollows above my collarbone. I do this about 10 times. Then I draw circles and massage around my collarbone a few times and then tap around my collarbone again around 10 times. Next, I place my fingertips right behind my ears and rub in circles a few times. Sometimes I'll also use my fingers to poke around a little underneath my jaw and give myself a little massage. Then I'll tap around the area a few times. Next, I put my hands in a Spock position with 2 fingers on each side of my ears and glide my hands down my cheeks. I do this a few times. In this video, it looks like I'm drawing circles, but I'm not. I'm just gliding my hands down and then lifting my hands slightly off my cheeks to return to the starting position and gliding down again. This is one of my favorite parts now. I'm pulling on and twisting my ears around while opening and closing my mouth. This feels so good. Next, I give myself a little rub along my spine and the base of my neck and bring my hands to each side of my neck and stroke my hands from back to front. Then I do a bunch of tapping along my neck. Now we're up to the shoulders. I start with giving myself a little shoulder rub, and then I place one hand inside my armpit and pulse upwards into my armpit. I repeat this a few times before repeating the same motion as I move down and up and back down and up the side of my torso a few times. Then I do a bunch of tapping along my shoulder and then the side of my torso before moving on to the other side. So again, I place my hand right beneath my armpit and I pulse upward into my armpit. It's a very gentle, sort of semicircular movement with a pulse. I do this while going down the side of my torso and then back up and down and up a few times, and then I tap, 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 tap. Okay, this next part is one of my favorite things too. This strange looking exercise for the vagal nerve and lymphatic system helped me get out of a major and frightening health flare a few years ago, and I love incorporating it into my routine. I make a fist and pound on my chest while saying voo and ah, and then when I get to the E part, I widen my eyes and I tap on the front sides of my neck. And I do this usually about 3 times. we're up to the abdomen. I rub circles around my belly and I give myself a little belly massage. And while I'm doing so, I incorporate deep belly breaths. And then I rub, 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 tap, tap, tap. Now we're up to the groin area. I used to have such dreadful swollen glands around here, super painful, super unpleasant, and caused all sorts of pain in my hips, legs, and back, and messed with my digestion. But no more. I place each hand along each side of my groin and stroke upwards a few times, and then tap, 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 tap. Next up are the knees. I rub behind my knees a few times and then tap behind my knees a few times, and then I will rub and tap up and down the backs of my legs as well. Next, I add in more shoulder mobility, because why not? And then I bounce, 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 wiggle, 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 wiggle. The gentle up and down bouncing helps lymphatic fluid move through the body. There's one more thing that's been a total game changer for me, and I've never heard anyone talk about this. The other game changer for me, in addition to adding in the mobility work, has been adding my Theragun to my lymphatic health routine. I use my Theragun on the key lymphatic hub areas, the collarbone, neck, shoulder, armpit, groin, and back of knee areas. I basically run through the same general routine that I've already shown here, except I do it using my Theragun instead of my hands. Depending on how much time I have and how I'm feeling, I might run through the entire routine I just shared and then repeat it using the Theragun, or I'll just do one or the other, or I'll do some sort of combination. It's been really remarkable to see the impact that adding in the vibration has had on my lymphatic system. Some of the areas that had been stubborn for a long time started to improve pretty quickly when I brought in the Theragun. Not everyone responds well to vibration, and your response to vibration can also change depending on your circumstances. I talk about this in other videos and will continue to share more, but one of the things that I love about neuroperformance training is the incorporation of assessments and reassessments that allow you to understand for yourself if something like vibration is good for your brain right now, neutral, or bad. I've also benefited from stimulating these lymph areas in other sensory ways, such as using heat. I love the Theragun, so when I have time, I'll often run it around my whole body, making sure to hit the lymphatic drainage hubs and then working on the surrounding areas. So I started by running the Theragun around my collarbone and then my neck area, and then I moved on to working around my shoulders and the sides of my body before moving on a little bit to my back and then going to the other side of my body and doing the same thing on the other side. The lymph nodes around my neck and collarbone were super clogged and inflamed for a long time, and I put a lot of focus on improving that area and thankfully no longer have any issues. One of the things that helped tremendously with this was adding in some stretching in different positions while using the Theragun. I had abdominal surgery earlier this year to remove my very infected appendix, and my abdomen was left incredibly sensitive afterwards. Too sensitive for me to initially tolerate the Theragun. My trainer guided me with sensory work that helped with my recovery and also allowed me to become less and less sensitive around the surgical scars and got me being able to use my Theragun on these areas. So now I'm using the Theragun around my groin and behind my knees and a little bit in the backs of my legs. And then I finish it off with some bouncing and wiggles.